don't know where this is
Shingy,
going.
you're like...
I don't know whether I need to be in a protection mode and get the hell out of here, or whether this is a lean
so
back
relaxed
cocktail.
and you're like,
Where is
oh,
the
no,
wine?
we're on.
Am I the only one who asks for wine in this thing? It's 9 in the morning. Why wouldn't we drink?
Apparently there's
No,
champagne.
seriously, do I need a bail? Quickly, that's why I have runners on. Sorry.
I will not bite, I promise.
All right, back to your title cards.
Cool. So I've been waiting for this interview all week. I'm so excited. The man, the myth, the legend, the one and only Shingy is here in person. We're going to chat. I've been watching you on screen all week. You've been crushing it. Great to have you here.
Thank you.
So my team wanted me to ask, and so I'm going to ask first, probably the #1 question you get asked. How do you style your hair?
Oh. Oh my God, nothing like that urgent questions.
I'm telling you, we're hard-hitting journalism here.
You know, I was telling you earlier as we were introducing each other that my sister's a hairstylist. I'm one of 10 kids. So one of my oldest sisters is a hairstylist, and I've had crazy hair for a long time, apparently. But it's all about the cut.
Yeah.
And a little bit of product, but it's all about the cut. During the pandemic, I cut it myself.
Nice.
Which was a little bit kind of odd, which it might still be a little bit. But, you know, it's all about the style. So,
okay.
Yeah, a little bit of sort of this sticky pomade thing. And it just, I have Asian hair, for God's sake. It goes up and out, thank
there
goodness.
You go. But, you know, it's always in brand and it's consistent. So, like, do you have like an actual, like, do you mold it that way every single day?
No, this took 3.5 seconds to do that. And when it literally did.
When
I just got off a plane this morning. Yeah, it does. Yeah. But when it's always, if your hair is this chaotic, it can always assume that it looks the same. But to me, it always looks different.
Wow.
So yours would be harder to style than mine.
Yeah. Oh.
For many reasons.
Oh, for a lot of reasons. We can get into that. So, how do you prevent it from like turning into dreadlocks?
Because, what the hell is this? Oh, this is the hair segment brought to you by L'Oreal. How do you stop it from doing dreadlocks?
Because, like, you know what I mean? Because I'm assuming you don't like deep condition and let it go.
Oh, yeah, I do.
Oh, you do?
Oh, yeah,
you do all that stuff?
Yes, I'm not, you know, I like to be clean.
Yes?
Not that dreads aren't. Because there was a time when I was about 17, I saw an amazing picture of Yannick Noah, you know, the tennis player?
Yeah.
And he was upside down and he has these amazing dreadlocks. And I said to my sister, I want that, but standing upright. So she set to get that thing done by putting meat skewers in my hair, and we set it to this really tight afro perm for Asian hair.
Yeah.
So I ended up having this crazy kind of, because I couldn't braid it, but I did a big, like a dreadlocky kind of vibe standing up, which took forever to do. It was amazing. But
wow.
But it really, you know, if you wash your hair in deep condition, you're never going to have dreadlocks.
Okay, and you can have this style
it's called a
very,
wig.
very easily. With a little pomade and a little zha, you're all good to go. So let's transition from hair to what you do every day. You are known as a digital prophet. That's a title.
It is. I made up.
Made up? Who made it up?
I did.
You
because
did.
I was working for AOL at the time, running 11 countries in their media and marketing. And my part-time job, because I'd helped reboot the AOL brand, when it came to the territories I was looking after, we ran out of marketing money, so we didn't have a lot left over for ourselves. So I went into the marketplace, talking about the marketplace and getting what we deserve out of it, being AOL at the time, but talking about the broader context of the industry. And my boss, Kate Burns in the UK, said, look, I think you've outgrown what we're doing here. We think you should go back to the US and be our full-time evangelist. So Tim Armstrong, who was running the company, overall CEO, said, we'd love to have you come back. And I said, look, I don't want to be an evangelist. Google has them, Yahoo has them. Let's come up with something else. And I come up with the digital prophet. Ha, 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 tee, hee, hee. And the industry hasn't forgotten since.
Brilliant.
God bless.
Yeah. And for those who are listening right now going, okay, what is that? What is your definition of a digital prophet?
Yeah, so look, maybe I should contextualize it very quickly by somebody quoted me recently and said, I'm the one-man cultural McKinsey. Which I'm here for that. I'm loving that quote. But what I do is look for trends and ideas and things that are happening in culture and distill them down in such a way that people can get it, particularly brands and agencies and friends and whoever will listen. But I really take a broad spectrum to this whole industry of ours called media. And, you know, the new definition of it from my perspective is that everything is advertising. That's what sort of happened. So we're not in the ads industry anymore. We're in the everything industry. And so my job today is to distill all of that down and let people sort of figure out how to contextualize what their purpose is inside that part of the industry.
Wow.
Yes.
So let's go into that more. So we're not in the ads industry, we're in the everything industry.
Which is everything is ads.
Everything is ads.
Yeah, and look, and I think it's great that Amazon called their thing ads, but I would want to turn that around and just call it Amazon It's something else, because ads itself has a connotation, not a good one. And here's why. 92% of people would rather have a referral program that's friends over ads. And then if you look at peer-to-peer reviews, it's like 84%. And word of mouth is like 74%. If you run ads today, the performance of those things are typically very low. That's why all of the contagion around Advertising Week this week is all about creator economy, or as some call it, influencer, which kind of makes me want to throw up ever so slightly, because it's not about influencers, it's people who influence, and they do that through their creative. So let's call them creators or makers in my mind. So it's less about ads, because everything can be an ad, man.
Yeah.
And everything can also position itself so it feels like it's sort of purpose built for the platform that it's on. It's not about spots and dots necessarily, unless of course you're talking about television.
Sure.
But I haven't had a TV in 20 years, so it's not necessarily.
You haven't had a TV in 20 years?
No, it's not for me really.
Wow. Do you feel like you're missing out on any of the shows or when people talk about them?
No.
Okay.
No.
I actually get that. I haven't turned my TV on outside of cartoons
I get
in the last few years. So I get leaving that connection and not really missing it. So everything is an ad. Would you say it's similar to when people say you're always selling? If you're selling people on your ideas, you're selling people on what to have for lunch. Are you always? Would you liken it to that statement?
I'd rather it not be like that.
Okay.
The only reason why I'd say that is that I'm a bit more empathetic to the idea of humans buying from humans. I love the idea of automation and all those sort of things, but the idea of always be selling, I think, is one of those statements. Maybe, but it's not. Maybe that happens it's a byproduct of the value you provide.
Yeah.
Everything today is about value. If you've come off as being selly, then are you always selling? Yeah, but probably wrongly.
Sure.
Wrongly a word? What the hell? We're making it up. But for me, it's countercultural.
Yeah.
Because if you're vibing somebody and it's like, so tell me about the things you consume that you care about. Is that selling? Possibly, but it's actually providing value to me because I'm curious enough to understand what that exchange is.
Sure.
So it's not blatant. Because look, if I was to show you a brand and you and I go on in our day and I ask you at the end of the day, hey, can you remember that brand? And you'd be like, which one? Of the 1,500 you saw.
Yeah.
The one I showed you. I don't know if I can remember that. So then I have to flicker it to you 1,500 times in addition to all the other things that are going on.
Right.
But there are ways that branding can happen in my mind that's even more powerful for recognition than before. And one of those, by the way, is Sonic. I'm a big fan of Sonic branding. So the idea is saying if I play you a logo right now, the most classic one would be Intel. You'd probably say, oh, that's Intel, without showing you the brand. So there's different ways of selling without feeling like it's kind of like, what did I say? Unads and unselling, jeepers, which is kind of weird. But there is something about it. And that's why everyone's talking about, well, then how do I get somebody to influence my brand? Well, is your brand worth influencing?
Right.
Therefore, how do we do that in a way that's through the craft of that communication? What's the best way to do it? Whether it's subtle, whether it's blatant. Blatant? Go walk up to Times Square and tell me what brands you've walked away with. Ones that probably caught your eyes and you felt like, that's contextually relevant to what I feel like now. But are you emotionally going to take that with you? Probably not without a frequency. But if you told me in conversation, this is the brand that I care about, and given that we seem to have similar ideas, you might really vibe this for my 5-year-old daughter. How can you tell me that? Because you have a 4-year-old who's actually just already gone through this. So I think there's an exchange of value that's very different than anything we've seen before, and people are trying to figure it out.
Mm-hmm. Let's talk about pain points. For the advertising community out there, what do you hear the most? What are some of the biggest pain points that people are struggling with coming out of COVID-19? What are the pain points? Okay, so there's kind of these 3 H's I think about all the time, and it's like a reboot of an industry that's in change. So the first thing I hear is a pain point. I'm going to come back to those 3 H's in a second, but the first pain point is, how do I put my media in the places where I'll attain the most attention? So it's the popularity contest. Every brand acts like an 11-year-old kid. It's all about happy hands, how do I get in front of them, jump around, blah, 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 blah. And that's not really, I think, where you need to think about it. Because audiences are great, but attention is everything. So that's great that you can actually put your brand in front of audiences, but you better contextualize it for them, because otherwise it's going to be lost. So try and figure that out. It's good advertising, good luck. But where I think it's interesting is that how do they act like the platform of which they're trying to get attention in a way that feels authentic, there's that word, but at the same time reflecting their brand correctly. Well, I would argue maybe you shouldn't be on all those platforms. Maybe you should be in the right platforms or platform to give you that. Also, I struggle with brands that produce one piece of content and distribute it everywhere and hope to God it's going to perform on every platform the same way, and they're flabbergasted when it doesn't.
And so what happens is that all these platforms then start to homogenize, meaning you know what you're going to get if you go to this platform, you know what you get if you go to that platform, and it all starts to kind of look the same because you've conformed your creativity by not just having the one piece everywhere. So the 3 H's that I think about as a secret behind all of this is just really simple, and that is humanity. And why do I say that? Wider purpose. We've just gone 2 years of going through shit. So humanity is really important. With that is empathy. So what is that? That's humility. So how do you do it in a way that isn't just about smacking somebody over the back of the head? Because society does that anyway. So how do you do it in a way that makes sure you build that empathy? And the last bit is, for me, the ingredient that I care about most is humour. And not because I'm a funny guy, I want things to be funny, but that's a nice cut through, a surprise. Because in every piece of creative, in my humble opinion, there are 2 things you should get as a takeaway. And that is either you should laugh or you should cry. But if I speak to others today, there are other elements to that that's sort of new as well, and that's entertain, inform. And maybe the last piece is entertain, inform, and surprise. And so that surprise element, to me, the surprise piece is, do you make them laugh or cry?
So going off of the content, that's really brilliant what you were talking about. So a lot of times agencies will they'll do 1 of 2 things, to your point. They'll either just create one piece of content and just push it everywhere.
Right.
And the audience for Twitter is very different than TikTok, right? For the most part. TikTok is very different than...
For every part.
Say that?
For every part, you're absolutely right.
Right. So we have people, I don't know if it's a lazy model or maybe they just don't want to challenge the status quo too much, so they have one piece that they're distributing on many platforms. But then you talked about if someone was to, customize a piece for the platform, then everything on Twitter looks the same, everything on Instagram looks the same.
Yep.
Yeah, so what is the right way? What's the right answer?
Well, there isn't a right way, because the type of creative that's being produced to go on those platforms is contextually relevant to the platform, then it becomes homogenized. Then you need to go and you need to hack it.
Oh, okay.
And that hack should be something that feels really unique. And why is it that I'm excited about that right now? Is because, and the creators and the makers, simply is this. Back in the day, the studios, this whole stuff was really hard. You know, you have people doing jump cuts in the back, they're editing the sound, making it takes an operation. These kids on these platforms, man, are using one tool called their phone with an application that is giving them many cuts, meaning they can do many, many different expressions of that. And they're creating creativity different today. Now, that's great for one platform, but if you go and give them a different platform, it may be expressed completely differently, and they could be overwhelmed, and that's why we're back to this model. But you have these tools that have been democratized, and that's why everything looks the same, because it becomes super popular. But that's where I find in the corners of those platforms it becomes more interesting, because people are trying to hack what that might be, that makes them stand out and become differentiated again. Happened in music. Because if you sit here just listening to jazz all the time, you never invent punk. Same thing.
Yeah. Okay, so let's look into our digital crystal ball for a minute. Okay, it's here. What does the future look like?
Oh my God, what a question.
You have to ask a prophet.
And what sort of time frame have we got for this?
2 minutes.
2 minutes. Okay, so look, the other topic du jour obviously is the Web3s, the metaverse, the NFTs, the blockchains, the whole thing of, you know, what's going to happen with 3. I'll reframe that and just call it me. So web me. It's all about ownership, right? Me. So if the tools aren't here that allows me to be able to understand that my data is valuable to somebody and there is a commercial exchange on that, then Web3 isn't going to exist in the way that we expect it to. So it means that you are now in control of the things that you've done across the internet universe or the interwebs. Previously, that exchange model was free internet means that I needed to have an ad. Today, if everything is an ad, what does that exchange look like? Because maybe I'm the ad. And given I'm the ad, how do I reverse that? And so instead of you showing me your ad, you show me a commercial relationship for me to be able to understand what the empathy looks like. So I think it'll be based upon trying to challenge new models of relationship, of context. That's one thing. Whether it happens inside goggles like this, or happens with AR like this, or it happens just like this, those models aren't going to change, but they will evolve. And as technology changes our behavior, what it doesn't do is change our needs. So if we can build ways to exchange connection through needs, not the desires of the brand, but our desires as a human, then I think we're in better shape. That's kind of the future I'm looking for anyway.
Okay, wow. Shingy,
is that helpful?
It's very helpful. And it gives us a lot to think about. I think we're all sitting here going, oh, that's deep. Any other thoughts? Any other things we should take away?
Look, the last thing I would say is I love the ideas that come from Advertising Week because it's self-sorting, meaning they don't come up with a theme. The industry creates those themes. And it's, at the moment, crossed between how do you make sure that anybody that works behind a brand has the ability to express themselves in a very fluid, expressive way. Love that. That's human culture. And at the same time, how do you build content for a brand at the speed of culture and engage with humans? But if there are 8 billion people on planet Earth, 50% of them never known life without the internet, and there are 6 billion smartphones, to do that is very hard.
Yeah.
So I would say the culture of engaging with people has to happen with a relationship that feels like you're a friend, not you're a brand trying to stand in front of somebody.
I love it. Wow. Shingy,
Oh,
our digital
thank you.
prophet.
It's very kind of you.
Wonderful having you here on set. It was so great to get to know you a little bit better.
Thanks.
And we wish you nothing but the best.
Thank you.
All right.